Power Up Gaming, the only destination you need for retro video games, consoles, and accessories. Want access to exclusive specials? Like us on Facebook.
Okay, so this video we're going to take a GameCube controller here, and the analog stick on the left-hand side, so the gray analog stick is actually completely dead. So it's not registering the controls properly. And what we're going to do is we're just going to replace it with a brand new analog stick, and I'll show you those in a second. Not easily done unless you have a desoldering gun. Yes, you can do it without a desoldering gun. You can definitely use like desoldering braid, or you can use a solder sucker, but it is extremely difficult to do it because there's a lot of solder points, and it's just a lot more time consuming. But we're going to walk you through how to do that. And actually, this is I just ended up getting the analog sticks for the GameCube, so this is actually the first one I've done for these, but I've done them on all the PS4s and PS3s and Xbox 360s and Xbox Originals, so it's nothing new, and they all are very similar, just different sticks themselves. The different pinouts are slightly different cutouts, different sizes of analog sticks, but above and beyond that, they're pretty much identical. So what we'll do is we'll go through. The one thing you will need is a tri-wing screwdriver, so it looks like a regular Phillips screwdriver, except there's only 3 points on it. So where the Phillips is looks like a plus sign, this is more like a triangle, so it's got the 3 points on it. So that's the one thing you will need. We do sell these in the store. I believe they're priced at about 10 bucks. You can also order them on Amazon or eBay. Just be careful if you order them from the Orient. Anywhere in China, Hong Kong, places like that, you're looking at usually about 6 to 8 weeks for delivery. Where eBay and Amazon, you can usually get them out of the U.S. for usually $5 to $6, somewhere around there. But otherwise, we do have them in store, usually in stock, and I believe they're priced about 10 bucks. So anyways, we'll get started, and I'll just zoom in here. So here we have the controller, and this is the actual analog stick that we're going to replace. So the analog stick feels good, but when you actually hook it up to the computer, which we always look at the computer for a recentering tool and actually the directions and everything, this analog stick here is completely screwed. So left to right, it goes left okay, the right is completely messed. So it only partly goes left or right. So we'll get that open, we'll take a look at it, and we'll get it replaced. So the tri-wing, there's a number of screws here, but we'll get them all removed. So the 6 screws in total that need to be removed. And I do have another video that looks at taking one of these apart and actually cleaning all the buttons, cleaning all the edging, and getting the buttons unsticking. So if you're looking at cleaning it also, you may want to take a look at that video, and what I'll do is I'll provide a link in the description for that. Because I mean, if you're taking it apart to replace the analog stick, it's a good time to actually take it apart and cleaning it. But I'm not going to do it in this video because I don't want to take that much time in the video when I've already covered it. So when you take it off, usually the buttons are one of the first things to fall off. You saw with one of the purple buttons fall off there. Well, one of them. There's only one. Okay, so there's the board there. Now this board here just pulls straight out, and then you can put this aside. There's a silicone pad here, and we're just going to take that off just to keep it with that. It's easiest just to keep the pads in place if you're not cleaning all the buttons and everything. Put that in a safe spot so it doesn't fall apart. And then you flip it over. So this is the analog stick here. We can pull off that cap, and then you can see it there. So this is the replacement one that we're going to put on there. So as you can see, it's the exact same size and everything, just obviously looks very, very different. What you can also see is there's quite a bit of corrosion on the actual board. And it looks like it's going to be a fun one, only based on the fact that this is actually in the way, and this actually looks like it just pulls straight out of the way. Like I said, this is the first one I've actually done of this one, but it looks like all this just kind of pulls out of the way. So we'll have access to all the points on there without an issue. So that's good. It looked a lot more complicated than I thought it was going to be at the very beginning. So the solder points we're looking at. Let's just make sure I have the right one. Looks like there's a few extra points actually on this piece here that are actually not on this board here. So we have these are screw-in. Unless I don't have the actual right analog sticks. Because there's screws in these corners. They look like they hold the analog stick in place, but there's no screws on this one. Interesting. Okay, just going to pause the video for a minute, see if I can actually use this analog stick, because the analog stick that I got in looks like it is a different one. Okay, we'll be back in a second, see if we can even modify to actually use it with this or not. Okay, so we should be unclogged. Sounds good. And we'll get rid of the solder on that last one. We'll go over the other ones. So I don't think we had all the sucking power we should have. So I had a clogged filter on this thing, which is what the problem was. Okay, so we've taken out those screws. So technically, it should just fall out exactly like that. So let's take a look at this. So when I take a look at it, the pins are absolutely the same. The only problem is that we've got these additional legs and that the centering pins are not there, which are these little tiny, I kind of did that off camera. So the pins line up fine. That's not the issue. So the pins line up fine, but we've got these attachment arms which aren't on here. What they used on the Gamecube is actually screws. And I'm pretty confident that with 6 of these points actually attached to the board, that the screws and the points, either ones, are not necessarily needed. I mean, it would be nice to have at least one point on this side, otherwise you're just anchored on the one side. And actually, looks like that one will go through. So it looks like we may have an anchor point on that one, but it won't be a solder point. It'll have to be a bent over arm. We'll have to cut off the other arms. Okay, so let's do this. First off, let's cut off those other arms that are obviously in the way. You know, if somebody's going to sell you something and it requires modifications, I wish they had let you know ahead of time. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take down the plastic centering parts, because those are going to be in the way. Okay, and then we'll take a look at this. And of course I cut off the wrong arm, so we'll start with a fresh one. Okay, let's try that again. See, we won't line up. Actually, I can probably use the 2 of them and bend them over. Okay. So I need to take off this one and that one. And again, we'll take off those flat pieces. Bend these guys in a bit. Sorry, I'm just going to grab my needle and pliers. So rather than just bend it in, we need to twist and bend. Okay, let's try that. So it is sitting tight to the board. Where's my flat screwdriver? Of course, it's not there. Just going to try flattening out those arms to kind of hold the board or hug the board a bit. Because we can't solder them down. So there's nothing for them to solder to. Okay, what I'm going to have to do is put a little solder on one of the points. Okay. So I'm going to try and get it in here so you can actually see. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply some flux to all the points on there. Because we're going to be soldering them all anyways. But what I'm going to do is I'm just holding it nice and tight. I'm going to get some solder on the actual iron. And then I'm just going to get some on the actual contact on two sides. So the first pin on either one. And then I'll go back and finish it off afterwards. I just want to be able to get that to hold it nice and tight against the board. I can get that a little tighter. Okay, so it is sitting extremely tight to the board. So I'm going to solder up those other points and then go back and finish off those ones I just did. And then I'll hook it up to the computer and we'll see what we can. And I did the wrong one there. That was one I was supposed to go back to, not the one I was supposed to start with. So again, we'll start at the end here. Okay. So clean that up. Just going to clean up the flux. Now, you may have noticed I didn't clean up the actual corrosion. As far as the corrosion goes, the flux itself, along with the solder, will actually clear up a lot of the corrosion anyways. so that the solder will flow nicely and will be nice and clean when the solder joints are done. So if you actually look under a microscope, you'll see that the solder joints are near perfect as far as cleanliness, which is a job of the solder and a job of the flux itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hook up the stick on there so we have something to work with. I guess I should have checked to see if that actually fit on there. Yeah, I see the notch lines up. It should. So I do see the notch on there and the notch on there. Okay, yeah, it does. Okay. So I'm going to hook that up to the computer, so I'm going to pause here, and we'll see if that actually works right. And hopefully we'll have a replacement analog stick here. Okay, so we're back, and the seller has told me that this will work. Hasn't given me a lot of details on exactly what is going to be required to do it, but we're going to take a look at it. We're going to take it off and see how it goes. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of the solder points, and we're going to take the old one off, and we'll take a look. We're obviously going to have to make some modifications to it, but the question is, will it actually work? And of course. Okay. Desoldering gun has decided to jam on me, so I'm just going to pause it here and fix that, and I'll be back again. Okay, so tested it on the PC, and the replacement analog stick works amazing. So yeah, it's a total success. The mounting points, I am happy with them. Is it a direct replacement? No, not necessarily, but I mean, they don't necessarily make perfect replacements for the GameCube. I haven't seen any. This was the first manufacturer I've actually seen to provide anything like this. So most likely this analog stick was actually used for a different controller, and then they realized that it was pretty damn close to the GameCube, and they started marketing it for the GameCube. I'm happy with the position. I'm happy with the way you can bend those pins over to hold it in position. 6 soldering points holds it nicely there. I'm comfortable with the fact that that's not going to be moving. As long as it's installed correctly, as long as you guys are installing it correctly, if you're doing this at home, I'm comfortable with that being a lasting repair. And now we'll just get the rest of this back together. So this piece did come off the actual controller, so we'll reposition that piece back on, which I believe is just like that. And then this piece kind of wedges in there. It's funny, never taken it completely apart before, taking this black piece off. I'm looking at this one here, which slides nicely in position right there, where this one wants to go further in and not stay right there. I think it should stay right there. Just doesn't want to actually stay right there. But we'll take a look at that in a second. Tactile switch is still good. Okay, we'll get rid of this. Which doesn't need to be there. Okay, so we'll bring back the other part here. Now this motor, it's the other part, which normally doesn't come off. That's a vibration motor if you're ever curious what that is, why it's there. Purple switch in place. Now this wire here for the vibration motor was actually tucked underneath, so we'll get that tucked back under. This part here actually kind of folds around that guy there. Nice and tight. And goes out of there. And this. Of course, that slid out. It's funny, I still don't like the position of those. Almost like they should be the other way. You know what it is? I know exactly what it is. Those get fed from the bottom. Okay, you know what? I know exactly what it is. Like I said, this black piece has never come off on me before. Never had to take it off. But these go from the bottom. Ah, it looks better. And again, get that cable in there. The purple is in place. Yellow analog stick is in place. I want to get it together better. I think that's it. So we'll take a look. Feel the buttons. Stick feels good. Button feels good. Purple one. Triggers feel good. I think everything's back together. Okay. So last thing to do is put all the tri-wing screws in. Doesn't matter what position you put it in as long as it goes together right. So we'll start at the end here. So these tri-wings, there's 3 bits that you should probably have in your collection if you're going to be working on Nintendo systems. There's a 3.8 millimeter security bit, which is used to open NES cartridges, Super Nintendo cartridges. What else is it used to open? A few other things. And then there's a 4.5 millimeter bit, which is used to open Genesis cartridges. Genesis cartridges, a lot of systems, Super Nintendo systems, Gamecube systems, and a bunch of other systems. TurboGrafx systems, usually there's one screw that's one of the 4.5 millimeter bits. So that's another good one to have on hand. So it's the 3.8 millimeter bit, the 4.5 millimeter bit, the security bits, and then the tri-wing screwdriver. If you have a complete set of those three, you can pretty much open any of the retro game systems, along with obviously having a good set of you know Phillips screwdrivers, so large, small, medium screwdrivers. You're good to go on all the consoles. So we've got all those screws back in. We'll give it one final test on the computer, and we'll be good to go. And this will be the end of the video as long as there's no problems. If there's any problems, I'll be back in a minute. If you haven't subscribed to us, please do. If you have any comments, questions, or anything else, please leave it in the comments below. If you have any suggestions for future videos, please put that below, and we'll go from there. Thanks, and thanks for watching. Okay, so welcome back. So last thing to make note of. So I did actually put it back together and hooked it up to the computer. And the one thing that I never actually ran into before with cleaning is these little sliders here. So this works as a potentiometer for the actual triggers. So for these guys right here, there's two different functions here. One is a standard button function, so on-off switch, so almost like a tactile switch. So that right there pushes the trigger mechanism right here, which we figured out how to put in properly. So in a simple on-off, but these sliders work as a potentiometer to determine how far you're actually pushing in the trigger for different games. So rather than an on-off function, how far are you actually pushing in the trigger to determine, what the action is on the game. So when we actually took it out, worked on the board and everything else, these little arms were actually pushed all the way down. When we go to put it back together, as you can see, these arms here slide in. If they're all the way down in this position, which is where we actually put the controller in, the buttons would have to be pressed all the way in order for it to mate. So when you actually go to put it back together, make sure these arms are all the way in the forward position, so closest to the actual power or the controller cord itself when you go to put it back together, and then those buttons will actually function properly. So that's the last caveat. So hopefully you stayed until this part of the video, and we've solved that problem, and we'll go from there. Thanks for watching.